Good morning. Welcome back to Pages into the Past, and for another installment of Sewing While on the Road. So last time you saw that I was working on my skirt. I did get that finished, and I have it hanging. There's not a lot of space here to hang things up, so you saw me wearing it last time. So this time we're going to work on the jacket. And remember what I said about those directions? The directions don't have a number 1. They have part of number 1 and then into number 2. So I don't know if this is all number 1 or if there's part of it missing. It talks about the pleated and underpleated over collar view. The next part talks about the collar, the facing and the pleated collar. And again, it's just partial directions. It talks about text from the plain collar, so collar neck to edge of coat as notched, etc. And she talks about the steps, and then it goes on to the next page where you think you're going to get number 4. It says facing for plain collar and front of coat, and it says arrange facing inside. Now, I believe she added the facing to the original. Not a whole lot of directions. And then there's 1, 2, 3 pages of how to put this jacket together. And it just is not, it is not a beginner-friendly pattern. So, fortunately, I've been sewing for a long time and I've done quite a few things, so I think I can go muddle through this. I'm going to work on the lining first. The lining has a front, a back, and then the sleeves. That's it. I'm going to put all that together, and then I will start working on the outer shell. The outer shell has a few more things. It's going to have your front to your back, your inner sleeve, your outer sleeve. Those 4 are all the same. It's also got a multi-piece collar, and then there's a belt option that I'm going to put the belt on, and then there are cuffs for the sleeves. And if you hear noises outside, we are in Phoenix, Arizona today, and the park that we're staying at has a lot of quads, razors, and it's a glorious day outside, so they're all running in and out to go do whatever they do in the sands. And so unfortunately I can't block all those noises, but I'm going to try to at least cover up some of them. So on to sewing. Alright, so you can see what I did on the jacket is I just did the 2 inner and outer shell. The lining and the outer shell so far, I've got them sewn together, and I just ran a stitch, just a basting stitch, all the way around the front opening, because you're going to end up putting a facing here and the collar. But I went back and I double checked the directions, and there was no directions on how to put this together. So I'm winging it. I'm winging it here, so wish me luck, because there are no directions on how to put this together. Okay, so I am now onto the facing and the pleated collar, or the unpleated collar. And again, lack of direction doesn't really tell much on what to do. You know, it says this section talks about creating the pleats in your collar. Do this after you have faced the pleats. You know, I'm winging it here, because part of my personal issue with this pattern is that nothing is labeled. When you look at this cover page, nothing tells you that this jacket has a rolled collar, or this one has a pleated collar, or this one has a shawl collar. I cannot tell that personally from looking at the picture. So what I believe that I am making is this one here, because the shawl, or the sailor style collar, overlaps, and so this is where it attaches. So I believe that that is the one that I'm making. Now I'm not adding pockets because I don't think that, for me, it's not, this jacket is not about the pockets. So here I have my sailor style collar, and what I've done is it said to interface it because it did in the cutout it shows, you know, or actually on the pattern piece it says 2 on fold, 1 on interfacing if desired. 1/2 inch seam allowance given on all edges. This piece was not included with the original pattern, but is included to provide more collar options. So, again, winging it. Fortunately, I've made several coats before, and I've done some men's coats, so I have a little bit of knowledge, but this is really testing me as to, here's a pattern, you don't need direction, go for it. So, I got my facing all pinned on, and I realized, well, how does the collar go on? So I did not pin, I pinned everything, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this, press it, the collar, and then I'm going to pin it underneath the facing. I'm going to repin this neckline with this collar jacket, this collar in it, because when this gets turned through, it'll stay on top, but I don't want to have to tear it out. The thread color that I have picked is such a perfect match for this wool that I cannot find it when I go to pick out my seams. It's difficult to find. So, wish me luck. I think I'm on the right track. If I get this part done, I think I'm going to call it quits for today. And that would mean that tomorrow I have to do the belt and the buttonholes, and then the hemming. I'm going to use some bias tape around the hem to turn it up and stitch it into place. But not my favorite pattern. I even went back to the website to see if maybe I missed a printing of the patterns. This might have been one of her first ones that she did, and maybe she didn't have a proofreader. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not reading the directions well enough. But I'm struggling, and that's a hard thing because there's not enough direction to help me find my spot out of here. So, wish me luck. Hello, welcome back. So, today I'm working on the cuffs. And reading the directions, it says, sew edge having small circle to lower edge of sleeve with small circle in front of seam and sleeve and large circle toward the front. There's no circles on the pattern. I was confused. It says here, cut the extra hem allowance on the sleeve off where indicated. Add interfacing to one of each of the 2 cuff pieces. Okay, I did that before we left. And then it says to seam each of the 4 cuff pieces, right sides together, having 4 separate pieces, and press open. So many of our modern day patterns don't use this terminology, and so I had to read it out loud several times to understand what this was really saying, because it says to seam each of the 4 cuff pieces right sides together to have 4 separate pieces and press open. So my initial thought was put everything right sides together, sew around, blah blah blah, be done. Then I read the pattern. I was like, seam 4, you should have 4. I only had me cut out 4 pieces. So what it really means is to stitch this edge together where your notch is, so that you have 4 separate pieces. And then you will slide the together, right sides together, before you stitch the curved side or the notched side here of the cuff. Because then you'll turn it and press it, and then that will become your sleeve cuff. So just in case you're following along on your own pattern and you go, what does that mean? Where it says to attach the cuffs to the sleeves, it says to match the back seam with the back seam of the cuff. It sounds good, easy enough, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, so the cuffs are sewn and turned, and they will go on the sleeve this way. So I thought, well, let's start on the belt, because that way everything gets put on at one time. And the instructions for the belt, it says belt and belt strap. Tack a piece of material at each underarm seam of coat with lower end at small circles. Arrange belt through straps with center at center back, large circles together at center front. This step is entirely optional. Create a strap. Tells you how to create the strap. Turn inside out, press, you've got your loop. Or you can make thread loop carriers. Okay. And it says, I suggest using buttons and buttonholes or large whopper, popper, snaps, and hooks to fasten belt. And that is all the direction you get on how to make the belt. So, that was not helpful. So then you have your pattern piece that shows you where your buttons will go. And a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and it says on it to cut 2 of self-facing fabric and cut 1 of interlining if desired. And that is all the help you get. So fortunately, we all know how to make a tube and turn it right side out, trim our edges, trim our seams, clip where we need to clip, because that's all we're going to be able to do on this. So let's get on to belt making. Hi, we're not going to get our jacket done today because the amount of bias tape that it told me to buy is not quite enough. I was able to get about half of the bottom of the jacket, but I have to go buy more. And so we're going into Mesa tomorrow, and so I'll see if I can pick up some more bias tape. The cuffs, the directions were sparse. And I decided what I was going to do. Because I had already put the lining in the coat, I can attach the cuff, and I will just whip stitch down, fold back, and whip stitch down the lining to the inside of the cuff. And then after I get the bias tape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that up, and then I will stitch it to the lining as well, so that it becomes a hidden, invisible. And then the next thing left to do is going to be add the buttons and buttonholes. And I'm going to wait until I have it all hemmed and ready to go before I do that, because I still have to add the waistband. Now I did complete the waistband, and it was just simple: sew it 3/4 of the way around, turn it through, press it, stitch it, top stitch it. I'm going to have to do, I think, 2 buttonholes is what's planned for that. And then the rest of the buttons that I have will go on the jacket. But I ran out of bias tape, so I have to stop. Which is probably a good thing. It's a little warm in the motorhome, so I'm going to go kick on the air conditioner and get ready to do some barbecuing. So I'll see you in a few days. Hey everybody, just wanted to stop in and say hi. I got my outfit done. So I have the wrong hat, but it's the only one I brought with me. So here's my finished outfit. So you can see the jacket here. Okay, so I've got the jacket. I don't have the right shirt. I just put on a dickie underneath. But I've got the belt done. Okay, so you can see it's all done. I've left the skirt long. I've hemmed the jacket. It does need a little bit of pressing to do. I got my buttons done. I turned the facing to the inside. Buttons for women are on the left, buttonholes on the right. But you can see it's done, even with that lack of directions that we got. I do have the wrong hat. Even though I've got the wrong hat, it's the hat that I brought with me. So at least it's a start. I'm on the hunt for a good hat. So, alright everybody, thanks for coming along. I appreciate you watching. And don't forget to subscribe. And give me a big thumbs up. Have a great day.